Deep in the wilds of Washington state lies Blackthorn Hollow, a place where the trees seem to whisper and the shadows hold secrets older than time. Locals speak of a presence of wailing shadow that haunts the valley, luring the curious to their doom. In the summer of 2019, one man ventured into the hollow, chasing a legend he thought was just a story. What he found changed him forever. This is his tale, and it's one you won't soon forget. Daniel Carter was no ordinary adventurer, a freelance journalist with a passion for the unexplained. He'd spent a decade chasing ghost stories, cryptid sightings, and forgotten legends across the country. His friends called him reckless. He called himself curious. In June 2019, while browsing an obscure online forum dedicated to Pacific Northwest mysteries, Daniel stumbled upon a post that stopped him cold. It was written by an anonymous user, their words dripping with fear. Blackthorn Hollow isn't just a place, it's alive. The wailing shadow knows your name. Stay away. The post described a valley deep in Washington's Olympic Peninsula, a place avoided by hikers and hunters alike. Locals claim the hollow was cursed, its name tied to stories of missing loggers, strange cries in the night, and shadows that moved against the wind. Most dismissed it as folklore, but Daniel was hooked. He'd heard similar tales before: Willow, the wisps, forest spirits, but this felt different. The fear in the post was raw, almost palpable. He decided to investigate, to uncover the truth behind the wailing shadow. Daniel's plan was ambitious, a 3-day solo expedition into Blackthorn Hollow. He'd hike to the valley center, a place rumored to be the source of the strange phenomena, and document everything. He prepared meticulously: extra batteries, a satellite phone, a hunting knife, and even a small journal to record his thoughts. If there's something out there, he told a friend before leaving, I'm going to find it. His friend laughed, but there was unease in their eyes. On a humid July morning, Daniel arrived at the edge of Blackthorn Hollow. The air was thick, carrying a faint, sour smell like damp earth mixed with decay. The logging trail leading into the valley was barely visible, overgrown with ferns and thorns that seemed to snag at his boots with purpose. He checked his map, took a deep breath, and began his descent. The forest swallowed him quickly, the sounds of the outside world fading until all he could hear was his own breathing and the crunch of leaves underfoot. The first day was grueling. The trail twisted through dense woods, the trees growing taller and more gnarled the deeper he went. By noon, Daniel noticed something unsettling. The forest was silent. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. He paused to record his observations, his voice steady but tinged with unease. It's too quiet, he said into his recorder. Like the hollow is waiting for me to make a mistake. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel found a clearing near a sluggish, black-watered stream. The water reflected the twisted branches above, creating a mirror of claw-like shapes. He set up his tent, a small dome barely visible against the towering trees, and built a fire. The flames crackled, casting flickering light across the clearing. He cooked a simple meal, canned beans and coffee, and tried to relax. But the silence pressed against him, heavy and unnatural. That's when he heard it, a low, mournful wail, like a woman weeping, carried on the wind. Daniel froze, his spoon halfway to his mouth. The wail wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. It seemed to come from the heart of the hollow, a mile or two deeper in. He grabbed his recorder, his hands trembling slightly, and spoke. Day 1, 8:47 p.m. There's a sound out here. It's not an animal, it's human. But not quite. I'm going to investigate tomorrow. He tried to sleep, but the wail returned every hour, growing louder, more insistent, as if savvy calling to him. Around midnight, the wail stopped abruptly. The silence was worse. Daniel lay awake, staring at the tent ceiling, his flashlight clutched like a lifeline. Then, a new sound, twig snapping, slow and deliberate, just beyond the firelight. He unzipped the tent flap and peered out, his beam sweeping the clearing. Nothing. But the air felt charged, like a storm was brewing. He zipped the tent shut, his heart pounding, and waited for dawn. The next morning, Daniel found something chilling. The ground around his tent was littered with small, smooth stones, arranged in a perfect circle. He hadn't heard anyone approach during the night. He photographed the stones, his hands shaking, and noticed something else. The stream's water was moving faster now, swirling in unnatural patterns, like something was stirring it from below. He recorded his thoughts. Day 2. Something's wrong here. The hollow feels alive, watching me. I'm not alone, determined to find the source of the wails. Daniel packed up and headed toward the heart of the hollow. The trail grew narrower, the thorns sharper, as if the forest itself was trying to keep him out. By mid-afternoon, he reached a small, rocky clearing surrounded by ancient oaks, their trunks scarred with deep, jagged marks. The air was heavy, the sour smell stronger now, almost suffocating. He set up camp again, his nerves frayed, and waited for nightfall. As darkness fell, the wailing returned, louder and closer, now coming from multiple directions. Daniel's fire flickered wildly despite the still air. He grabbed his camera, hoping to capture something, anything. That's when he saw a shadow, tall and humanoid, standing just beyond the firelight. Its edges were blurred, like it was woven from the darkness itself. It didn't move, didn't speak, but its presence was suffocating, like a weight on his chest. Daniel called out, his voice cracking. "What do you want?" No answer. The shadow began to move, circling the clearing slowly, its movements silent despite the crunch of leaves underfoot. The wails grew into a chant, ancient and alien, echoing inside his skull. He recorded everything, his voice trembling. "It's circling me. It knows my name. I heard it my name. In the wails." He tried to take a photo, but the camera screen went black, as if the shadow swallowed the light. For hours, the shadow circled, never stepping into the light. The wails formed words now, leave, stay, mine, over and over, like a command and a plea. Daniel clutched his knife, too terrified to move. He tried to rationalize the hallucinations, exhaustion, but the air grew colder, the fire weaker, as if the shadow was draining the warmth from the world. At one point, he swore he saw eyes in the shadow, glowing faintly, like embers in the dark. Just before dawn, the wails stopped. The shadow melted into the trees, leaving only silence. Daniel didn't sleep. He packed up at first light, his hands shaking so badly he could barely zip his bag. As he fled the clearing, he noticed something new. One of the scarred oaks had a fresh mark, a spiral with jagged lines, like a warning. He ran, the trail seeming to twist and stretch, the forest itself resisting his escape. When Daniel finally reached his jeep, he found it covered in deep scratches, the metal gouged as if by claws. The satellite phone was dead, despite a full charge. His recorder, which he kept running, captured only static where the wails should have been. He drove out of the hollow, the sour smell clinging to his clothes, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Back home, Daniel dug deeper into Blackthorn Hollow's history. In a dusty archive, he found a 1923 article about a logging camp that vanished in the valley. The loggers' tools were found scattered, covered in claw marks, their tents torn to shreds. A later report from 1956 mentioned a hiker who claimed to hear wails calling his name, only to disappear days later. Locals spoke of the wailing shadow, a guardian of the hollow, bound to the land by an ancient curse. Some said it was a spirit, others, something older, something that fed on fear. Daniel never returned to Blackthorn Hollow. He quit journalism, unable to shake the nightmares of the shadow's glowing eyes and the wails that echoed his name. He posted his story online, a warning to others. The hollow is alive. The shadow is real. It knows you're there before you even arrive. His recorder and camera never worked again, but he kept the journal, its pages filled with frantic sketches of the spiral symbol and the words he heard in the wails. To this day, Blackthorn Hollow remains untouched. Hikers avoid it, and maps rarely mark it. Those who know the story say the wailing shadow still waits, its cries carried on the wind, searching for the next soul to claim. Daniel's final words in his journal: "It's not a place. It's a trap. Blackthorn Hollow holds its secrets tight. Its shadows alive with whispers of the lost." Mark and Alex Thompson were no strangers to the Black Hills. Born and raised in a small town on the edge of the forest, they'd spent their childhoods hunting deer and exploring the trails. Mark, the older brother, was bold, always pushing deeper into the woods, while Alex was more cautious, attuned to the subtle dangers of the wild. In October 2021, they planned a 3-day hunting trip, aiming for a remote section of the hills they'd never ventured into before, a place locals called the Fog Basin, known for its sudden, impenetrable mists. The brothers set out at dawn, their truck rattling along an old dirt road that petered out into a narrow trail. They parked near a crumbling stone marker, its surface etched with faded symbols that looked like warnings. Mark laughed it off, calling it tribal graffiti, but Alex hesitated, his eyes scanning the dense pines. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine sap. They shouldered their rifles, checked their gear compass, GPS, flashlights, and a small radio, and began their hike into the Fog Basin. The first day was uneventful. The brothers followed game trails, spotting deer tracks but no animals. The forest was strangely quiet, the usual rustle of wildlife absent. By noon, they set up a base camp in a small clearing, surrounded by towering pines that seemed to lean inward, as if watching. They built a fire, cooked a quick meal, and planned their next move. Alex noticed the air growing thicker, a faint mist creeping in from the north. "Fog's coming," he said, checking the GPS. Mark shrugged, eager to keep hunting. "We've dealt with worse," he said. By late afternoon, the fog had rolled in fully, a dense, white shroud that reduced visibility to a few feet. The brothers decided to head back to camp, but the forest seemed different now, the trails twisting in unfamiliar ways. Their compass needle spun lazily, refusing to settle, and the GPS screen flickered, showing impossible coordinates. Alex's unease grew, but Mark pushed on, his confidence unshaken. "We're not lost," he insisted, though his voice carried a hint of doubt. As dusk fell, the fog thickened, turning the world into a gray void. The brothers stopped to regroup, their breath visible in the chill air. That's when Mark spotted a faint, orange glow flickering through the trees, like a lantern or a campfire. "Someone's out here," he said, relieved. Alex wasn't so sure. The light seemed to pulse, moving slightly, always just out of reach. Against Alex's protests, Mark decided to follow it, convinced it was another hunter's camp. The light led them deeper into the fog basin, the terrain growing rockier, the trees more twisted. The air grew colder, the fog so thick it clung to their skin like damp cloth. Alex swore he heard voices faint, distorted, calling their names. "Mark, did you hear that?" he whispered. Mark shook his head, but his grip tightened on his rifle. The light moved faster now, darting between trees, forcing the brothers to stumble over roots and rocks to keep up. Hours passed, though time felt distorted, as if the fog was warping reality itself. Suddenly, the light stopped. The brothers found themselves in a narrow ravine, its walls slick with moss and jagged stone. The glow hovered at the far end, brighter now, almost blinding. Mark stepped forward, but Alex grabbed his arm. "Something's wrong," he hissed. The air was heavy, electric, like the moments before a storm. The whispers grew louder, forming words they couldn't understand, guttural, ancient, like a chant from the earth itself. The light pulsed faster, and for a moment, they saw shapes within it, tall, thin figures, their outlines blurred, moving in and out of the glow. Mark raised his rifle, shouting, "Who's there?" The light flared, then vanished, plunging the ravine into darkness. The fog lifted slightly, revealing the brothers' surroundings, a circle of stones, each carved with the same symbols they'd seen on the marker at the trailhead. Alex's flashlight beam caught something else, fresh scratches on the rocks, deep and jagged, like claw marks. The brothers' radio crackled to life, emitting a burst of static mixed with a voice not theirs whispering, "Follow, follow." Panic set in. The brothers ran, scrambling up the ravine slope, the fog swirling around them like a living thing. The whispers followed, now a chorus, calling their names in a mocking tone. Mark tripped, his rifle clattering against the rocks. Alex pulled him up, his face pale. "We need to get out," he gasped. They stumbled through the forest, the trail markers gone, the trees seeming to shift and close in. The light reappeared, always ahead, leading them deeper into the unknown. Hours later, exhausted and disoriented, the brothers stopped in a clearing. The fog had lifted, revealing a starless sky. Their camp was nowhere in sight. Alex checked the GPS, but it was dead. Its screen cracked as if struck. Mark's flashlight flickered, then died. That's when they heard a low, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat, coming from the ground beneath them. The light appeared again, closer now, hovering over a patch of earth covered in strange, sticky webbing. Mark approached the webbing, his curiosity overriding his fear. He brushed it aside, revealing a small, metal trapdoor embedded in the ground, rusted and etched with the same symbols. Alex begged him to leave it alone, but Mark was determined. He pried it open, revealing a dark, narrow shaft descending into the earth. The orange light pulsed from within, accompanied by a wave of warm, sour air. The whispers grew deafening, chanting their names in unison. Mark leaned closer, peering into the darkness, when something grabbed his arm, a cold, skeletal hand, its fingers impossibly long. Mark screamed, yanking his arm free. The brothers stumbled back, the trapdoor slamming shut with a metallic clang. The light vanished, and the whispers stopped. They ran, not stopping until dawn broke, the forest finally opening to reveal their truck. It was covered in the same sticky webbing, the windows scratched with deep, claw-like marks. The radio inside was on, playing static interspersed with their names. Though the battery had been dead for hours, the brothers drove home in silence, too shaken to speak. Back in town, they researched the fog basin, finding old stories of missing hunters and miners who followed a mysterious light, never to return. A 19th century journal from a prospector described a glowing spirit that led him to a hidden cave where he saw things not of this world. The symbols on the stones and trapdoor matched those found in ancient burial sites, linked to a tribe that vanished centuries ago, rumored to worship something beneath the earth. Mark and Alex never hunted again. Mark bore scars on his arm faint, finger-like marks that never faded. Alex couldn't sleep without hearing the whispers, their names echoing in his dreams. They shared their story with a local historian who warned them to stay silent. "The light doesn't forget," he said. "It's still out there, waiting for the next to follow." The fog basin remains a place of whispers and warnings. Hikers report seeing a fleeting glow, hearing their names on the wind. The trapdoor has never been found again, but the light still wanders, luring the curious into the fog. Sarah Ellis was an artist with a passion for capturing nature's raw beauty. A freelance photographer based in upstate New York, she built a small following online for her haunting images of winter landscapes. In January 2023, she set her sights on the Adirondack Mountains, specifically a remote trail leading to the Crystal Falls, a frozen waterfall rumored to be breathtaking under the right light. Locals warned her about the area too isolated, too dangerous in winter, but Sarah was undeterred. She craved the solitude, the chance to capture something no one else had. Sarah planned a 4-day solo trip, staying in a small, rented cabin near the falls. She packed carefully her camera, extra batteries, a satellite phone, a sleeping bag rated for sub-zero temperatures, and a journal to sketch her ideas. "This is my chance," she wrote in her journal before leaving. "The falls will be my masterpiece." She arrived at the cabin just before dusk, a squat, weathered structure nestled in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. The air was biting, the snow crunching under her boots as she unloaded her gear. The first day was everything Sarah had hoped for. The trail to Crystal Falls was treacherous, slick with ice and buried in fresh snow. But the waterfall was a marvel, sheets of ice cascading down a rocky cliff, blending like diamonds in the weak winter sun. She spent hours photographing it, her breath fogging the air, her fingers numb despite her gloves. The forest was quiet, save for the occasional creak of branches under the weight of snow. She felt alone, but alive, lost in her work. Back at the cabin that evening, Sarah warmed herself by a small wood stove, reviewing her photos. The images were stunning, capturing the fall's ethereal glow. She sketched ideas in her journal, planning to return at dawn for more shots. As night fell, the temperature plummeted, the wind rattling the cabin's windows. She felt a strange unease, like eyes on her back, but chalked it up to the isolation. Just the woods, she told herself, stoking the fire. Around to AM, Sarah woke to a noise-soft, deliberate scratching, like nails dragging across the cabin's wooden walls. She sat up, her sleeping bag rustling, and listened. The sound circled the cabin, slow and methodical, pausing near the door before starting again. She grabbed her flashlight, her heart thudding, and shone it through a window. The beam caught only snow and trees, but the scratching continued, louder now, as if whatever was out there wanted her to know it was close. Sarah tried to stay calm, telling herself it was an animal, a bear, maybe, or a branch caught in the wind. But then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Her camera, left on the table, was now on the floor, its lens pointed directly at her bed. She hadn't touched it. She checked the memory card, her hands shaking, and found a new photo. Time-stamped just minutes earlier, a blurry image of herself sleeping, taken from above, inside the locked cabin. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The cabin was locked, the window sealed. She was alone, or so she thought. The photo showed her curled in her sleeping bag, her face pale, unaware of the lens above her. The image was grainy, the shadows around her bed unnaturally dark, as if something was standing just out of frame. She clutched her knife, a small folding blade she kept for emergencies, and moved to the door. Checking the lock, it was secure, but the scratching grew louder, now accompanied by a low, guttural hum, like a voice trying to form words. Sarah didn't sleep. She sat by the fire, knife in hand, listening as the scratching circled the cabin for hours. The hum grew into whispers, soft, unintelligible, but unmistakably directed at her. They seemed to come from inside the cabin now, echoing in the corners where the firelight didn't reach. She tried the satellite phone, but it was dead. its battery drained despite being fully charged that morning. The wind outside howled louder, carrying a new sound of faint, deliberate tap like fingers on glass. At dawn, the noises stopped. The silence was oppressive, pressing against the cabin like a physical force. Sarah mustered the courage to step outside, her camera clutched like a shield. The snow around the cabin was pristine, no tracks, no signs of an animal or person. But the walls bore fresh scratches deep, jagged marks, too precise to be natural. She photographed them, her hands shaking, and noticed something else, a single, faint footprint in the snow. Human-shaped but impossibly large, leading toward the tree line and vanishing. Sarah's instinct screamed to leave, but her gear was scattered, her tripod now leaning against a tree, her spare batteries arranged in a neat row on the porch. She packed quickly, her heart pounding, and headed back to the trail. As she passed the falls, she saw a tall, shadowy figure standing on the cliff above, motionless, its face obscured by the morning mist. Its silhouette was wrong, too thin, too still, like a statue carved from darkness. She raised her camera, but the figure vanished when she pressed the shutter. Sarah ran, the trail seeming longer, the trees closer, as if the forest was closing in. Her journal tucked in her pack fell open, and she saw new writing, her handwriting, but not her words. It sees you, it knows. The ink was fresh, smudging under her fingers. She didn't stop to question it. The air grew colder, the wind carrying whispers now her name, over and over, in a voice that wasn't human. She felt eyes on her, heavy and unrelenting, from every direction. When Sarah reached her SUV, she found it covered in frost, the windows etched with faint, spiraling patterns like fingerprints but larger. The engine started reluctantly, as if the cold had seeped into its core. She drove to the nearest ranger station, her hands trembling on the wheel. The ranger, an older man with weathered eyes, listened to her story in silence. When she showed him the camera, the photo of her sleeping was gone, replaced by a single image of the falls, with a dark shape reflected in the ice, watching. The ranger didn't seem surprised. He told Sarah about local legends, the Silent Watcher, a presence said to haunt the Adirondacks, stalking those who lingered along. Old stories spoke of trappers and hikers who saw a figure in the woods, always watching, never approaching. Some claimed it left marks, moved objects, or whispered names in the night. A 19th century diary, found in a nearby cave, described a shadow that sees your soul, tied to a forgotten ritual site near the falls. Sarah never returned to the Adirondacks. She stopped photographing, unable to hold a camera, without seeing that blurry image of herself sleeping. The journal stayed locked in a drawer, its new pages untouched, but she swore it sometimes opened on its own, the words it sees you appearing again. She shared her story online, hoping to warn others. The Watcher is real, she wrote. It's still out there, waiting for someone new to watch. Crystal Falls remains a destination for the brave, but hikers report strange occurrences, cameras failing, objects moving, whispers in the dark. The Silent Watcher lingers, its gaze eternal, its motives unknown. The Adirondacks keep their secrets in the ice and shadows. The Silent Watcher waiting for his next visitor. If you face something unexplained in the wild, tell us in the comments. Thanks for joining us for these chilling tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more true horror stories.